There are moments when the job you once prayed for starts draining you, or that promotion that you worked so hard for just comes with a side of anxiety you didn't ask nor even plan for. Or maybe you're in that space where you're wondering if it's normal to feel so off, even though you're technically winning, and you can't even pick out who to open up to without asking yourself questions that are going to leave you feeling like you're better off keeping this struggle to yourself. In this video, I'm diving deep into the 7 career dilemmas that directly impact your mental and emotional well-being at work. And I'm also going to share with you practical ways to protect yourself through each one of them so you feel less vulnerable and more empowered by the end of this 20 or so minutes. Hi, welcome back to my channel. And if we are meeting for the very first time, my name is Nancy. I'm a former airline professional turned workplace leadership trainer. I've equally authored books on leadership and its greater impact on your bottom line. So you'll mostly find me here discussing topics on matters of workplace leadership. This is something I'm very passionate about. Professional growth, career advancement, and their connection to your mental and emotional wellness. And if you're already in a leadership role or you aspire to take up one, then my kind of content may resonate with you. Kindly consider subscribing. Press that notifications bell on your screen to get timely updates whenever I release a new video. And again, thank you so much for joining and growing with this community. If you consider yourself even remotely ambitious, then you're going to agree with me that success doesn't always feel like success. We've been conditioned to chase the traditional markers. I'm talking about promotions, accolades, power, visibility. But these external rewards don't always meet our internal needs, especially if you over-identify with achievement as a form of self-worth. So you work so hard entering into this cage of self-sacrifice, but when you reach the top, you're like, wait a minute, this is not even the view I wanted. And you still feel empty and even more anxious, but your organization still expects solutions despite the overwhelm that you may experience. Success ought not to be rooted in survival. So if you've been feeling hollow, exhausted, conflicted, even somewhat off, you're in the right place. So let's dive right in. Dilemma number 7. Feeling so guilty for wanting more, that feeling where everything about you looks perfect on paper. Your job is great, the pay is solid, your LinkedIn profile is glowing, and under normal circumstances, you have the coveted dream job. But behind the scenes, you feel like you're hitting the goals, but they're not hitting back emotionally. Let's say you spent more than 10 years climbing up the ranks to get to the top 5% of your organization. You're still in your early 30s, but the 80-hour weeks are now taking a major toll on your overall wellness. You badly need a sabbatical to help you regroup, you crave deeper fulfillment. And you feel guilty about that. And there's that voice whispering at you that stepping off the treadmill is not the wisest idea. People in roles like yours don't just take breaks without losing everything. And you also don't want to be labeled ungrateful or never satisfied. But what would happen if you gave yourself permission to want what you want? Ambition evolves. Curiosity is your compass. It's my compass. Just think of your future self and imagine how you'd want to show up for that person. It's okay to want more impact, more alignment. But the dilemma here is between your work ethic. You can hack the 12-hour work days seamlessly, but there's your mental and emotional wellness, which call on you to step back and slow down. But in your mind, you're thinking, I cannot afford to slow down. I can't have hustled this much to lose the credibility I've built and even be rendered irrelevant. I may be drained, but I've devoted my life to this organization and its mission. People are now depending on me, and taking time off would be selfish. The one thing you want to be clear on is, are you climbing the corporate ladder for validation or for fulfillment? Are you attracted to Velcro success where you need the titles, the awards, the status to speak louder than your voice? Or are you craving magnetic success, which actually pulls you in because what you do is in perfect alignment with who you are? Are you stuck to something that looks good, or are you pulled by something that feels right? And the more in tune you are with yourself, the more fulfilled you're going to be in your career. Dilemma number 6. Staying loyal to a job that no longer serves you. Here's an organization that gave you a chance when no one else would, and you've poured your time, energy, years into this role. You've built relationships, you've got history, but in your heart of hearts, you know that you've outgrown that role, and you have this inner voice that keeps saying your work just doesn't feel right anymore. That feeling comes with heaviness, sometimes even resentment, and that knowing sense that you're betraying yourself by staying. The question here is, are you being loyal to your growth, or are you being loyal to your comfort? And when you serve in an organization for a considerable number of years, you subconsciously invest emotional capital into that role. Maybe it was your first big break, as we've mentioned, or you fought tooth and nail to get that seat at that table. And now stepping away feels like failure in your book. This is a dilemma that I personally went through. I loved my job. I loved the opportunities that came with it, the relationships that I had. And I was at this point where I had to relocate for family-related reasons. I cannot tell you how many sleepless nights I had before handing in my resignation, thinking, I've worked so hard to walk away now. Loyalty to a job is not the same as loyalty to yourself. And here, my past investment, all those years in the company was blinding me from the present misalignment, which was growing my family. And I'm a strong believer that family comes first. So staying in the job was going to slowly break me down. And I knew it. So maybe in your case, you're the go-to person, the expert in your field, and living just feels like you're losing status. You're here wondering, will I have to prove myself all over again? What if I step away and regret it? What if my next venture is not better? These are valid concerns. You may not have to start from scratch. It's probably just a question of getting consciously aligned with your purpose in that role. And the internal dialogue would show up as, I should be grateful. So many people would love to have this job, or I just can't quit. My boss counts on me. The greater danger here is giving so much that you don't recognize yourself anymore. And you're going to notice the conversations that used to light you up just start annoying you because you've prioritized loyalty to your job over yourself. So this is a good time to do a proper self-analysis. Call yourself for a meeting. You want to be very clear on what exactly is making you keep that job. Who are you trying to not disappoint? And if you met someone in your exact situation, would you ask them to stay? Write down, if you can, your career values inventory to see what still aligns. Sometimes the wisest voice is the one we use when advising others. And you'll notice that your loyalty serves you best when it follows your growth. Dilemma number 5, being the minority voice in the room. This is a dilemma that I'd say affects mostly women compared to men. Maybe you're a woman of color, or you're a younger woman in a traditionally male-dominated role, or you're both, you're both young and colored in a predominantly male environment. So you carry the weight of representation, that feeling that you need to justify your presence in the corridors of power. And you know that there will be side eyes, an extra spoonful of scrutiny, maybe subtle remarks meant to destabilize you. Think of the moments before you speak up in meetings, but you're more preoccupied with, will I sound too aggressive? Will they think I'm too emotional? Will I be seen as competent, or will they think that I'm too much? That's not overthinking. It's survival mode. You have to be the best version of your gender, your race, your generation, just to be taken seriously. So for the most part, you have to get used to showing up as a representative of your entire category instead of just showing up as yourself. And this can be exhausting. At what point do you get to be human when you have to constantly scan the room, not necessarily for what's said, but how it's said and how it's received, or even how you are perceived? You have to manage your tone, because too high or too low can be a problem. Your facial expressions, you don't want to be labeled as too dramatic. Your assertiveness levels, that search for a perfect balance between being a team player while fully standing on your values. Your appearance, will my hairstyle betray me? How about my makeup and choice of outfits for these meetings? You even have to manage your silence, so you don't come across as too quiet, bordering timid, or too loud in spaces where you have to ration your voice for others to finish their statements. And I'm fully convinced that more women go through this than men. You don't breathe the same way in meetings, because you know that if something's off, if something goes wrong, maybe you mess up a bit in slides, you won't be just that one person who messed up, but you'll be that woman or that colored woman who messed up in a meeting, or who didn't prepare enough and had to be guided through her slides. So you find that you're the one person who cannot afford to be tired. You cannot afford to be overwhelmed at your workplace, because you don't want to reinforce what others have already assumed about you, much as you are still exceptional at your job. And imagine going through this every single day. At some point, you're going to start editing yourself in real time, feeling like you're too much and not enough at the same time. You're going to be performing exceptionally well that people forget that you're still human. You're going to feel seen, but seen is not synonymous with safe. And that emotional labor of existing in these environments can be immense. Remember, you're the wearer of that shoe. So consider creating unfiltered spaces where you don't have to explain your tone. You don't have to code your language. You don't have to justify your reactions, because here we need mirrors, not microscopes. And also consider giving the mental gymnastics a rest. Instead of filtering everything to appear over polished, just ask yourself, am I here to represent or to relate? And that way you give yourself permission to be human, not flawless. In such spaces, internal dialogue goes a long way. Just accept that you're not there to prove your worth. You're there to live your worth. Dilemma number 4, doing emotionally taxing work with no support. Some leadership roles drain more than just time. They can drain your emotional bandwidth. And yes, leadership demands your time, but then there are those that literally demand your entire nervous system. You're not just showing up at work, you absorb your work. You have to carry the tension of the team. You have to soothe the difficult personalities. You have to calm the panicked team players. You have to appease the emotionally intense clients. And by the time you get home, you've bled emotionally into every corner of your day. Just think of the internal energy that you have to use to stay composed in chaos, to deliver hard feedback with grace, or even the times when you have to support a colleague who's breaking down, going through their emotions while you're barely holding it together yourself. And everyone comes to you with their problems because you're really, really good at holding peace. But when they leave, it's just a simple thanks, thanks for your time. No acknowledgement of the emotional cost behind it. So you almost always feel like you're the company therapist, you're the moral compass, you're the punching bag, all in one. And no one sees you crying all the way home because you've been emotionally performing all day long. You cannot keep pouring calm and compassion into your job when when your own emotional cup is bone dry. Something will give way in the name of detached relationships outside of work or chronic irritability. So start naming your emotional labor in real time. Just create a simple end of day note on your phone, like, what emotional energy did I give today? Who needed my emotional presence? What did I need and not get? Maybe someone just checking in on you could have done you a lot of good. And it's equally important to normalize conversations about emotional strain, especially if you're in a leadership role, so you can give others permission to also not suffer in silence. Drop in words like, this type of work is emotionally heavy. We need more resources, whether it's staffing, or wellness tools, or even time. Here, you're subconsciously advocating for structural support. And then be on the lookout for those intense meetings or the people-heavy hours, so that after each one, you give yourself a few minutes of grace to just breathe and press reset before the next activity calls. These are your personal decompression windows. They keep your sanity intact. And the plan here is for you to function, not to overfunction for others to underfunction. You're not a machine, and your body is going to make sure you're fully aware of it. Dilemma number 3, choosing between a promotion and your peace of mind. Just imagine being offered this promotion, big title and even bigger paycheck, but it also comes with 60-hour work weeks instead of your regular 35. There's constant travel, so you'll basically be living out of your suitcase. And you also have to be okay with this boss who keeps breathing down your neck, always on your back. You have no room to breathe. So yes, it looks good on paper, but a big part of you feels conflicted even before you take office. And the big question here is, do you level up? Or do you protect your peace of mind? Do you want the title, or do you want the lifestyle that comes with the title? Saying no may actually make you feel less ambitious. You feel guilty for even considering turning it down. And the litmus test for you here is the new role aligned with these 3 P's: your peace, your purpose, and personal goals. Voices will be whispering in your ear, you'd be crazy to not take this offer. This is huge for your career. You've clearly worked so hard to get this opportunity. But what if it feels more like a trap than an opportunity to you? If it aligns with your purpose, it's going to move you towards deeper meaning, not just the metrics. I'm not talking about saving the world. Is it meaningful to you, or will you be performing another person's definition of success? How would you rather show up to serve? Will the new role allow you to contribute in a way that energizes you? And if your only why is because it looks good, that's not purpose, that's pressure. Then Peace is not about avoiding stress altogether. I'm the first one to advocate for good stress, but you want to discern the difference between a stretch and a strain. Ask yourself, by taking this role, am I inviting calm or chaos? Will I be able to serve without sacrificing my sleep or my joy? Peace is non-negotiable, because once you lose it, everything else just gets harder. Your thinking, your relationships, your health, name it. So if the opportunity only feels like it's only going to work if you power through, if you ignore your body, if you sacrifice rest, then it's not aligned with your peace. And you will know that the role is moving you closer to your personal goals when your final decision is based on your vision and not a reaction to what others expect of you. And you'll also be happier at the end of the day when you look at the other person, the person on the other side of the mirror. If it doesn't hit 2 of the 3 P's, then consider taking a step back or at least renegotiating the terms. Dilemma number 2, constantly being the strong one. You're considered the mugumo tree of your peers and teammates. People come to you for food, for medicine, for shade. This is more of a metaphor. But basically, you're the one people lean on in all seasons. During layoffs, you'll be the one consoling your peers, cooling fires, making sure that no one is left alone. You are the calm in the storm, the one who can handle it all without dropping the ball. And you've probably been wearing this hat as a badge of honor, but who checks in on you? There's a hidden cost to holding everyone together when you're the main or only support system for your team members, because at some point you'll be emotionally depleted. Then you find that you're not laughing as much as you used to. You wake up tired, even after 8 hours of sleep. Why? You've absorbed other people's crisis to the point of giving from your reserves. And now your well is running dry. There are no refills. And these are the moments when frustration will start checking in. As you open your eyes, and you notice that people are leaning on you, but they don't ask how you're doing. Others even get away being overwhelmed or messy, but you don't have that luxury. And this is the kind of frustration that can lead to quiet resentment, because from the outside you look fine, but on the inside the tornado is gaining momentum. You start getting irrationally emotional over small things. You feel too numb to celebrate your wins. You just want to sit in your car or in the shower, because that's the only place where you can be yourself. Let's talk of accumulation strength with no outlet. Being strong doesn't mean self-sacrificing, because while you nurture, you also need to be nurtured. So make a list of the people you lead on one side of a paper, and then those who help you in leadership on the other side of the paper. And if the second part is empty, you're not supported. And this is a good time to find your support system where you can lay it all bare, as we've discussed, and be okay to not be okay even when the stakes are high. Try replacing, I've got this with, I've got some of this, but I'll need help with the rest. Just keep in mind that strength doesn't break you, silence does. And the plan is not to hold it all together all the time, but to ask for help before you shatter. Dilemma number 1, the pressure to always be on and perfect. If you're that go-to person in your organization who doesn't miss deadlines, you don't make mistakes, you rarely rest, you always over-deliver, but inside you're crumbling to pieces, this dilemma addresses you personally. Perfectionism can lead to chronic anxiety. You're admired for your spotless and polished presentations, for being so dependable, but how many people see you editing emails 6 times before sending them, sometimes even till 3 in the morning? They see perfection, you see pressure, and that's a personal prison. If you look closely, perfection is just fear in disguise. Maybe from earlier in life, you were praised for being the smart one, for always getting things right. So you learn that if I'm not perfect, I'm not safe, I'm not enough. And in high pressure careers, this can easily turn into overfunctioning, people pleasing, self-surveillance. It doesn't go away when you succeed, it just gets louder. Just imagine having 20 browser tabs open in your brain all the time. Did I miss something? Did I say something wrong? Did I disappoint others without even knowing it? So your mind is in constant what-if mode, so much so that you trust perfection over praise. Self-sacrifice has a face, sleeping in fragments, drinking coffee just to power through your day, obsessing over drafts. Your body is here trying to recover, but your mind is still auditioning for approval. So you want to be feared and admired by your peers, and you'd rather even work 10 times extra, even if it means waking up at 4 in the morning, not for self-care, but to double check your work before going to the office. Perfection isolates. So try telling your mind that you are a work in progress, and your self-worth is rooted in how you show up, not just how perfect the outcome of your work is. Done well is better than done perfect. And deliberately let something be good enough once a week. Don't tweak it, don't triple check it, don't stay up late even to polish it. It's not going to be easy, but your mind will thank you for it. Perfection is not about being your best. It's about being afraid that your best will not be enough, that your value is conditional. Like if you let your guard down, it will all fall apart. But as you normalize letting good enough be enough, you're going to notice that you're much lighter and happy with this new version of you. Just think progress over perfection. Sometimes the real career move is not in a new job, but a new way of showing up in the one that you have. If you received value from this video, please let me know in the comments section what really spoke to you. And also consider subscribing and pressing the notification bell on your screen if you haven't joined this community yet. Also, let someone know who may benefit from this kind of content. And if you have a moment, have a look at this video on how to navigate difficult conversations as a leader. There are insights that shed more light on some of the dilemmas that we've discussed in this particular video. Thank you so much for your company and see you on the next one. Bye.